Hey guys, today we're going to be doing a movie review over The Secret Life of Walter Mitty in Ready Player One.
We will be rating each movie in categories such as acting, cinematic effects, plot, characterization, and more.
We are going to rate each category and then give an overall rating at the end of what we thought about the movie. Our rating system is based on dance moves. For example, a nay-nay is a 1 out of 5.
The floss is a 2 out of 5.
The dab is a 3 out of 5.
The shoot would be a 4 out of 5.
And finally, the whoa is a 5 out of 5. Now that we have explained our rating system, we're going to give you a little bit of background information on our movie.
The Secret Life of Walter Mitty was produced in 2013 by Ben Stiller.
Ben Stiller plays Walter Mitty in the movie The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. He is the protagonist, and the movie is about him being a daydreamer because he wants to be a different man than who he is.
He stands up to his boss, Ted Hendricks, the antagonist of the film, who is also played by Adam Scott. Walter Mitty, because of his daydreaming, is not brave enough to express his feelings to his love, Cheryl Melhoff, who is played by Kristen Wiig.
Now that we have provided you with some background information, we're going to start rating the categories of the movie. First, we're going to start out with acting skills. In my opinion, Walter was pretty good at acting, and I would have to give him a 5 out of 5, which is a whoa.
I'd have to agree with you. A 5 out of 5 seems reasonable enough because, let's see here. In the scene where he's in, Greenland, he has a little realization thing by that drunk man, and by the way he portrayed it, it was very believable to think that he was actually starting to feel like he was more of an actual person who could do these types of radical things, these types of, unexplained events, and these events that could get him killed.
Next, we're going to talk about Ted Hendricks, who's the antagonist of the movie, and his acting skills.
I'd say that Ted Hendricks was more of a 4 out of 5. I'd give him a 4 out of 5 because he was believable, but he wasn't developed enough, and sometimes I wasn't fully convinced, but he did a pretty well job.
Yeah, I would have to say he's a 5 out of 5. I think he did a pretty good job on his acting skills, and he really portrayed the antagonist with his acting skills. Next, we are going to score Cheryl Melhoff's acting skills. In my opinion, she was more of a dab because I think that her character was not developed that much, and I think that it could have been better.
I agree with you. I think that her acting was a little bit worse than Ben and Adam, but she did portray it really well, so I would say a 4 out of 5. Next up, we're going to be rating cinematic effects. One of my favorite scenes that displayed a lot of great cinematic effects is when Walter is daydreaming while in the elevator with Ted. Ted was being rude to him, and Walter was daydreaming about what he wished he has the confidence to do, creating this montage of what a fight would look like.
I would have to agree. This scene displays low angles, high angles, tracking shots, pans, and much more. It is full of great cinematic effects. I would have to say that one of my favorite scenes that displayed great cinematic effects was when Walter was up on the mountain heading towards Sean O'Connell.
Yeah, that scene was great. It showed tracking shots, high angles, low angles, medium angles, pans, and over-the-shoulder shots. It was a great representation of cinematic effects. For instance, look at that mountain right there. And then as we go to this low-angle shot of Walter Mitty, obviously a great example of cinematography.
In my opinion, the cinematic effects is more of a 4 out of 5 or a shoot because there are a lot of good scenes, but some of the other scenes are kind of dry and don't show many cinematic effects.
Yeah, I would agree. Overall, all of the cinematic effects were pretty impressive, but there were some bland ones where it didn't make any sense on why they used that type of tracking shot or why they used that type of scenes or the close-ups or anything like that.
Next up, we're going to be rating and discussing the plot of this movie. In my opinion, the plot was really good, and I think that the director utilized the minor characters to help move the plot along very well. For example, Todd Mayer, he called every time that Walter was in need or in a sticky situation.
So you'd say that Todd's kind of like the comical character that moved on to make it seem less serious?
Yes, I would say that.
I think they did a really good job. I'd say that the plot in general was really good. It was not basic, and there was always something that keep going along. There were no really weird scenes in which it was really out of place. For example, I think the most outrageous scene would have been the boat scene, in which he ends up on the boat and from that helicopter jump. It seems kind of out of the place, but it helped move it along so we understand where Sean went. We understand what happened to Sean on the boat. So it kind of helps out with the plot.
I agree. I think that I would give the plot a 4 out of 5 because it was good, but there were a few hiccups.
Yeah, I'd give it a 5 out of 5 because everything was explaining everything else. Next, we will be rating characterization and how they were developed.
In my opinion, Walter Mitty's character was developed really well. In the beginning of the story, he lets his boss walk all over him, which is shown in this scene. His boss flicks a paperclip at him, and Walter Mitty just walks away because he is not brave enough to stand up to him. However, Walter Mitty's character develops, and at the end of the movie, he finally stands up to his boss, which is shown in this scene.
No, that's McDonald's. This thing that you do, Ted, where you come into a place and you push people out, you should know that those people worked really hard to build this magazine. They believed in the motto. And I get it, you got your marching orders.
This is why we are giving Walter Mitty's character development a whoa, which is a 5 out of 5.
Ted Hendricks. Honestly, I believe that there wasn't really that much characterization to Ted because we know he's the antagonist, but we don't learn much about him. We just know that he's the boss and that he's firing everyone, and that's about it. We don't really get to learn much about the character, so we don't know if he developed at all through the film.
I have to agree. I would say that Ted really didn't develop that much as a character. He was kind of a static character and stayed the same throughout. And for that reason, I would have to give his character development a 3 out of 5, which is a dab.
Ooh, I'd have to give his character development a 2 out of 5, actually, because we don't really know much about him, and maybe that's for purpose, but honestly, I couldn't really believe his character development if there was any.
Next, we're going to talk about the character development for Cheryl Melhoff. In my opinion, she was developed a little bit more than Ted Hendricks, but not as much as Walter Mitty. I think that she developed in the way that she grew feelings for Walter, and at the end they became a couple, but other than that, I don't think she developed much.
Okay, I believe that. It's just that sometimes I feel like we were left with a mystery for Cheryl. Maybe that's what they wanted because the love interest, and obviously people will need to learn more about, but we didn't get to learn much about her.
In my opinion, the total movie was pretty good, which is why I'm going to score it a shoot or a 4 out of 5. I think that there were a few things that could have been better, but all in all, it was pretty good.
Yes, I believe that Walter Mitty was an outstanding production. Many different transitions were beautiful. There were a lot of good cinematic effects. Character development was pretty good too, but I'd have to give it a 4 out of 5 because as great as everything were, there was a little bit of setbacks. For example, like I believe that the character development for the antagonist or the love interest was kind of bland. I know the entire movie is called The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, so we'd have to revolve around Walter Mitty. But Walter falls in love with Cheryl, so we have to learn more about Cheryl. And the entire adventure itself was pretty amazing and pretty adventurous, but sometimes it was so bizarre that you can never really fully understand. So
I would have to agree.
So we're gonna rate it as a shoot?
Yeah.
Right. Next up, we're gonna pass over the movie review to Carlin and Michaela. They're gonna be talking about the movie Ready Player One.
Thank you, Sean. Next, we'll be rating Ready Player One. Now we're rating acting skills. Wade Watts, played by Ty Sheridan, is a well-portrayed character in the movie Ready Player One. The movie was very good at showing how focused Wade was at obtaining the keys to make sure nothing bad happened to the Oasis. Another character to talk about was Artemis, played by Olivia Cook. Olivia was an excellent actress and did an exceptional job at portraying Artemis and her effort to finding the keys and earning points in the Oasis. The audience could easily see her drive and get more points to be the best she can be, especially when she was inside the hub. Nolan Sorrento, played by Ben Mendelsohn, is the antagonist of our story. Sorrento is trying to obtain the keys and win Halliday's hunt in order to take over the Oasis and turn it into his own virtual reality. Mark Rylance, who played James Halliday, was also a notable actor within Ready Player One. Without James Halliday, the story would have no plot or conflict, just a bunch of people living in an online virtual reality. While he isn't Nolan Sorrento, he's still a large part of the story, and thankfully we had Mark Rylance to play his character and portray him well. Next, we're talking about cinematic effects. One great cinematic effect in the movie was when Wade is explaining his friend H. We then transform into a third-person view of H in a PvP battle area, seen to be fighting all kinds of other players.
This is a great cinematic effect because of all the explosions.
Another notable scene is the dancing scene in The Shining, where Artemis dances with Ogden's wife, a girl James Halliday wished he had the chance with. The green color in the scene not only gave hints to the zombies around them, but created a mysterious atmosphere for them to find the Jade Key in.
Overall, I'd rate cinematic effects a 5.
Next, we're doing character development. First, we're going to talk about Wade's development. In my opinion, Wade developed well in the story. In the beginning, he was shy and underconfident, but by the end, he became confident enough to admit his feelings for Artemis, causing them to begin dating.
I agree. Wade's character development was displayed well. Next, we're going to discuss Nolan's development, and in my opinion, he did not develop as a character that much. He was pretty much static character, and that stayed the same throughout the beginning to the end.
I agree. In the beginning, he is after Wade because he wants to take over the Oasis, and at the end, he has not developed much at all.
Next, we are going to discuss Artemis's development. In my opinion, she developed in a way that she grew feelings for Wade, but she was also pretty much a static character. She did develop and grow in certain aspects of her life, but she was not as developed as Wade.
I'd have to agree with that. For character development, I'm scoring this movie a shoot, which is a 4 out of 5. I'm giving it this score because Wade was developed well, but the other main characters did not change much throughout the story.
I would score the character development a 3 out of 5, which is a dab, because Wade developed as a character, but a lot of the other characters did not. Moving on to a more controversial topic in the book versus the movie world, the adaptation of the book Ready Player One into the movie Ready Player One was one of the worst plot transformation I've ever seen. The movie was a radical transformation from the book, which means that the movie strayed away from the book.
I agree. In the book, obtaining the crystal keys is completely different than the movie. For example, in the book, obtaining the first key, the copper key, is finding a dungeon on the planet Ludus, where the school is located. But after you find the dungeon, you have to go through and complete the arcade game, joust to win 3 times to obtain the copper key. But in the movie, you just win an impossible race to obtain the copper key.
In the movie, Wade can travel to pretty much anywhere in the virtual paradise of Oasis. But in the book, Wade is too poor to travel anywhere but the loading planet Incipido and his school planet on Ludus. In the book, the only way Wade can access the Oasis was through his school-owned visor and gloves, but in the movie, Wade seems to own his own Oasis visor.
In the book, there's a big gap between clearing the first gate and figuring out the clue to the second. During that time, Wade leaves Oklahoma City for the first time in his life, creating a whole new identity. It's during this time that Artemis begins letting her guard down, and she and Wade get to know each other online. Wade begins to care more about hanging out with Artemis than the hunt. He won't leave his apartment for another 6 months. This movie seems to not include this time in Wade's life.
All of these changes and many more impacted the way the audience portrayed the movie. If someone didn't read the book and watch the movie, they would probably believe it was a great movie due to the fabulous cinematic effects and the character development. But if you find someone who read the book and watched the movie, they would probably think that the book is better than the movie in many aspects. My rating of the adaptation from the book to the movie is a 1. They could have done so many things better.
There could have been plenty of things improved upon from the adaptation from the book to the movie, so overall I rated it 2 out of 5.
Overall, the movie was pretty good, but the transformation from the book to the movie was pretty drastic, and the movie should not have stayed away from the book.
I would have to agree. I'd say that the acting skills for the most part were pretty good, but this movie was not outstanding in any of the categories we covered. For these reasons, I'm giving this movie an overall rating of a dab, which is a 3 out of 5.
I would have to agree. The adaptation from the book to the movie was just too different, and the movie could have improved in many different aspects.
Thanks for watching our movie review on The Secret Life of Walter Mitty and Ready Player One.
I hope you enjoyed our comments and critiques as well as our unique rating system.